In today's video, I'm going to focus on information released by the Moscow Police Department in the documents that they've now made public, which is 314 documents since Bryan Kohberger was sentenced. So if you don't know anything about this case, I hope you'll expand the description box, find a case background write-up, and also the link to the playlist so you can catch up over there. This is for those of you who are following my video series as we cover these documents. And what I'm doing is categorizing the information. So today's is all about what was a little weird leading up to the murders. Please note that this content is for adults only. Viewer discretion advised. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe, like, and share. Okay, before we do that, I just want to show you this drone footage of the home, which, as you know, the home is demolished now, right? And so I'm doing this so that you can visualize the home, the wooded area at the back and around the sides and everything. While I read that, you'll be able to know which part of the house they're talking about. So this was the front door, 1122 King Road, and this bottom layer of the house, the ground floor, on this side is where Bethany Funk, one of the surviving roommates, was in her room, and Dylan Mortensen also went there later, right? And they were in this room together. And this side was actually a room used as a computer room for Kaylee and Maddie. They had computers there, and the students actually stored like their golf clubs and just some random things. It was kind of like a storage room, right? Now, if we go to the second layer of the house, this would be the living area, and if you keep walking towards the back, it would be Dylan Mortensen's room, and she is the one who had run downstairs to be there with Bethany after hearing noises and things and being very scared because they didn't know what was going on in the house at the time. And then on this side is where Ethan and Xana were staying in Xana's room over here. Okay, now if you go to the top floor, on this side, in the top floor where I've got the picture, that was Madison Mogen's room, and Kaylee was actually in her room at the same time. And then when you hear them reference Murphy the dog, Murphy was actually found in Kaylee's room, which was this room over there. But Kaylee had already essentially moved out. Some of her stuff was still there because the police had to collect it and give it back to her family. But just so that you could see who was where when this happened, and as I'm sure you know, the killer, Bryan Kohberger, entered the house through the sliding door at the back. So what I'm going to do is I will move these pictures over here, and I'm quickly going to play this drone footage. I'll move myself out the way as well, just so that you can picture the scene before we dive into these documents. Now, we are still going to look at many things, many different categories of information coming from these documents. So I will tell you about the crime scene. I'll tell you about things that the police found outside the house, around the house. I'll tell you about Bryan Kohberger's movements after the murders, people that think that they spotted him on November 13th of 2022, all sorts of things. We can also look at the Papa Roger account that police investigators have actually debunked that it was Bryan Kohberger, and we're going to look at all the reasons why it could be him and why it probably isn't him, right? So there's lots to come. But as you can see here, this is now, wait, let me pause it actually here. This is the back of the house. This is the sliding door where they say Bryan Kohberger entered the house. So this would be, as you can see, it would be on that second floor where there's a living room, there's Dylan Mortensen's room, and on this side, I'll move myself over, sorry, Dougall's pointing over here. This is where the wall is, where Ethan and Xana were in the room. And I'm so sorry to mention this, but you remember the blood dripping down the wall, they said? Yeah, that would be coming from this room. And when we cover the crime scene, you'll understand why that was even happening, because, oh my goodness, it sounds very hectic. So sometimes, as we even saw in some of the body cam previously, which is also on the playlist, of the noise complaints and things that happened at this house with other students around the area complaining that there was loud music or parties or whatever.
No stairs to the back deck. Interesting.
you?
Good. Is this your place?
Yeah.
Perfect. You know over here.
I assume noise.
Noise, yeah.
Yeah.
Big speaker right there.
Yeah.
Nothing against having a party. Once neighbors start calling in, then we have an issue.
Fair.
You go to school?
Yeah.
Okay. What year?
Senior.
Senior. Okay. So I'll tell you the same thing I told them. You probably know the drill, right?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay. So usually, at least for me, I'll give you a verbal warning.
Okay.
Once I have neighbors calling in, your music's too loud, you're disturbing the peace.
Yeah.
Nothing against having parties, nothing against having people over who are overage to drink. But again, once we start disturbing the neighbors, then we've got an issue.
Yeah.
Hey guys, second time. I need somebody to come to the door.
Alright, we'll get someone to come to the door.
Music stays off. Party's over.
Yes, sir.
But this is the second noise complaint we've had here tonight within 2 hours.
I'm sorry
Okay?
about that.
So this time it was the blonde gal and the guy on the back porch playing music. Okay? So,
I sincerely apologize about that.
okay.
There were a lot of students on this balcony here. They hung out here. You could see there's a couch here to sit on as well. And you'll see this area referenced in the documents as well. So, but now as we go to the back of the house here, let me move myself here. Look at the back of the house. You could see that wooded area, and then it just goes slightly uphill, and there's actually a parking area at the back there. And from that parking area, you could see straight into Madison Mogen's room. So let me pause it there. Hold on. I'm going to move myself again. If we pause it there and we look in this area up, like if someone drives that up this way, and they go park up here, they can look straight into the house. So if Kohberger was a voyeur, if he stalked, these victims in any way, they don't have proof of that, but they do know that his cell phone pinged around the area, which could be quite a radius, I understand that, but around this area, like 23 times before the murders occurred. So that's also part of, I suppose, the creepy coincidences leading up to when the murders actually occurred. So there you can also see the couch, the back hangout area. You could see where cars could drive, and you could see the wooded area. All right, so now are we ready to look at the documents? Let me show you. So out of the 314 documents, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that I'm going to focus on today about information leading up to the murder. So I've highlighted the parts that I'm going to share with you so we don't sit here forever. I don't want to waste your time. This is supplementary report 109. So I'm just going to read the report numbers. It's report number 109. And somebody here said that redacted, a person told the police a few weeks ago on October 14th at around 1 o'clock in the morning, she heard what she thought was a male walk up to her door and try to open her door. She stated that she had her deadbolt and door were both locked. Okay, so that's just one of the things. Is it actually something or not? Could it be Kohberger or not? I don't know. It could literally be anyone. It doesn't have to mean that it was him, but it's one of the creepy coincidences. October, so that would be a month or so before the murders, which occurred on November 13th of 2022. And we know that he was around the area, right? Okay, so that's the first one. Okay, so this is report number 122. I'll read here from where it says narrative so that it's all cohesive. It says on 1/18/23, I spoke to, and all the names are redacted to protect these witnesses. Reference a suspicious occurrence she and redacted remembered at 1122 King Road. I called redacted and asked her what she remembered. She told me she came to Moscow to celebrate redacted's birthday on some date in 2022. Kaylee Goncalves had planned a party for her at 1122 King Road that evening. She stated several people, to include Goncalves and redacted, were on the back patio during the party. See, now you can picture it, right? Goncalves' dog, Murphy, was also present. She stated that Murphy ran up into the bushes behind the house on several occasions and would not return when called. She stated they called Murphy numerous times before he would come back. She told me the group eventually went inside and shut the door. This was the only occurrence that she was present for, but told me that another person remembered more similar occasions. So then they called that other person on 1/19/23, referenced those occurrences. She also related the occasion on her birthday and added it was unlike Murphy to not immediately return home when called, which is the reason that she and Goncalves were concerned about someone being behind the house when Murphy would behave in this manner. She also told me about another occasion on 10/29/22, during which she was at 1122 King Road for a Halloween party. She told me that Mogen, Goncalves, Kernodle, and Chapin, that's all 4 victims in this quadruple homicide, were present at the party. During the party, Redacted stated that the group gathered on the back patio once again, and Murphy began to run into the woodline behind the house and did not come back. Redacted told me they heard noises too. She described these noises as similar to what it would sound like if someone was moving through the woods on foot. This occasion took place midday, and they did not see anyone behind the house. However, Murphy's behavior and the noises caused them to go inside and close the door. So multiple students having these parties were uncomfortable enough on at least 2 occasions here to be like, oh my word, let's just go inside and just close the door. So that's interesting. Now here they said this occasion took place midday. That doesn't sound too much like Kohberger, right? He drives around at night, but it doesn't mean that it's not him. And it also doesn't mean that it's him. It's just creepy coincidences that occurred in the weeks leading up to the murders, and it could be him. It could have been, right? So the last occasion she remembered took place approximately 2 weeks prior to the homicides. She was unsure of the date. She stated that Murphy displayed similar behavior of running into the woods and not coming back when called. She also recalled an occurrence during the same time frame, exact date unknown, wherein she and Goncalves returned to 1122 King Road and found the rear sliding door standing open, and Murphy was missing. She stated they had to go out and look for Murphy after they found the door open. I asked her if it was common for people who didn't live at 1122 King Road to walk in when no one was home. She stated it was not uncommon, and added that members of Redacted and several friends of the females who lived there would come and go at will. So then they say, I thanked her for the time and concluded our interview after advising her to call me if she remembered anything new. So what can we read from this? We can only speculate that if it was, in any of these occasions, Bryan Kohberger somewhere there being all creepy in the woods and staring at the house, I would suspect he could very much be a voyeur. He also told one of his colleagues that, he talked a lot about burglary crimes in particular. We'll get to those eventually as well. There's lots to talk about in these documents. Let's focus on this. But what this could mean is that maybe, and we're speculating, maybe over time, Kohberger desensitized Murphy to his presence. That would be what could be speculated from this. That maybe calling Murphy into the woods, somehow getting Murphy's attention and giving Murphy a treat each time, right? We don't know, but it's possible because they said Murphy's behavior was very odd in the weeks leading up to the murders. Running into the woods, not coming back when called, that was unusual, and then hearing people walking in the woods and all of that. Let me know in the comments below what you think about that. Now we go to supplementary report number 90. Okay, so this talks about, November 16th of 2022 at around 11:55 hours, I meet with Redacted. I think that's Bethany Funk. Is it? Could be. Redacted. At her Redacted office. Present during the interview beside me and her were her, it's all redacted. It's hard to read when it's so redacted. That's why I stick to the highlighted parts. But I just want to give you the background. They said, I asked Redacted who had the front door code. She told me the following people had the door code. So we can deduce the top one is Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen, the surviving roommates. Maddy Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. Then they've got a JM, a CC, an LM, I think HJ would be Hunter Johnson, an EA, which I think is his girlfriend, and a JL, which I think is a friend as well. So these would be friends of the victims and the people living in the house, right? Redacted stated that the above-named people were the only ones that she knew had the code. She stated the code for the front door was the same code from the year before. I asked her what the code was, and she stated it was Redacted. She stated that Madison Mogen, was the only roommate who lived in the residence the year before, which would have been 2021. Now what we know is that Bryan Kohberger got to Pullman, Washington on June 23rd of 2022. The murders occurred on November 13th of 2022, right? So, but here it says Maddie was the only roommate who lived in the residence the year before. Redacted stated that her, Dee, and Kaylee moved in around August 3rd of 2022. Shame, they weren't there for long. August, September, October, November. 3 months. 4 students murdered. Redacted stated that Ethan had his own apartment, but she was not sure where it was located. She stated that Maddie kept her same room from the year before. Maddie's room was located on the 3rd floor on the east side of the residence next to the bathroom. I asked Redacted about Murphy's routine. Murphy was Kaylee's dog that she had purchased when she was still dating JD, her ex-boyfriend, right? Redacted stated that Kaylee would primarily take Murphy out, but Maddie would also help. She stated they never just left the door open because he would run away, so they would have to use a leash when they took him out. She stated that Murphy would not bark that often and was very friendly. Now we know he was barking that night because it was heard, on the ring cam audio, and there were also neighbors in the area that heard Murphy barking. Redacted stated that Murphy would primarily sleep in Kaylee's room, and if Kaylee was not home, he would be left in the room. So that could explain why she put him in the room, her room that she was used to, and then she went to, nap or hang out with Madison Mogen before Bryan Kohberger entered the house. I asked Redacted about the Uber driver. Okay, so you can pause to read if you want to read all of this, but today, as I said, we're focusing on any creepy coincidences. So this is now about the Uber driver, who else lived in the house, and all of that, right? And again, it's report number 90, if you want to go and find that report. So if we just keep going down to where I highlighted, it says I asked, which would be, I assume, Bethany, about 2 other incidents where Kaylee had mentioned some weird things that happened. She told me about an incident at Winco, where a male had followed her around the store, watched her check out, and then followed her to a vehicle. Xana was waiting at the vehicle. She stated that Kaylee said the male was African American and in his late 20s. So that debunks that Kohberger stalked Kaylee at a store. Because I've seen that reported a bit, that was probably him as well. That wasn't him. If Kaylee said the male was African American and in his late 20s, Bethany felt it happened sometime before Halloween, so mid to late October. She stated that Kaylee purchased a case of White Claws for Xana, which are drinks, right? Now, Bethany and her roommates had found the door open. This is a creepy coincidence. They'd found the door open on November 4th at around 10:57, and they entered the house and grabbed golf clubs out of the west first floor bedroom. That first bedroom next to, on the first floor, Bethany was on one side, and on the other side was that other room that I told you they had computers in, right? So they were freaked out. Like, why is this door open? Which I assume would be the front door. Now, she and other roommates walked around the house with the golf clubs to check the house. Kaylee was not home for this incident, as she had gone home for the weekend. Wind was blowing, and the screws on the hinges were loose. And Xana's dad fixed it before he left that weekend. So there we have it. Remember we heard that Xana's dad had put a lock on her bedroom door, is what was reported before. Well, here it says that actually what he did was he fixed the screws that were loose and the hinges and everything on the front door. But it is interesting that the front door was standing wide open. It freaked everyone out. They got golf clubs. They walked around the house. They're like, what is going on here? Right? Because on the morning of November 13th of 2022, a neighbor said between 9 and 10 in the morning, the front door was standing wide open. And they found it really weird as well. While they were walking their dog, they saw it and thought, that's weird. Right? So to know that on November 4th, a very similar thing happened, and that suddenly now the hinges and the screws were loose, that's interesting too. Could they have been loose before? Yes. Why was Xana's dad in the area? Because it was a parents' weekend, just that weekend before the murders happened. And so he was there and just fixing up some stuff. So we don't know if it was like loose from that incident. Did someone fiddle with it? Could that someone be Kohberger? Or is it just, a whole bunch of coincidences, which is why this is called creepy coincidences that happened before. And so Kaylee told everyone, it says Kaylee told everyone, and there are multiple witnesses who did relay this information to the police. Kaylee told everyone about an incident where she saw a male watching her when she had taken Murphy out back to go to the bathroom. That is a huge red flag. If that wasn't Kohberger, who was it? Another creeper? That'll be quite something if it was somebody else, right? But my goodness, that must have freaked her out. Kaylee loved true crime shows, and she was very safety conscious. She also looked up all the registered SOs in the area and was warning all the other students about it. And so for her gut to tell her that there's something really creepy. There's a guy like standing in the woods just staring at me while I'm taking Murphy out back to go to the bathroom. Now, Redacted could not remember when this happened, but she could not provide an actual day. She stated that she had been at a chapter meeting at the time that Kaylee called them asking if they were going to be home soon. The following is a timeline of events from November 12th to 13th. So this timeline is also very interesting, and we can get to this in a different video because, yeah, there's a lot of interesting things in this particular document, number 90. Now, this, just in context, a lot of people ask, why did the surviving roommates not call 911 earlier? They took like 8 hours to call. Here, I must say, with all the noise complaints at the house, and we've seen body cam of that, and maybe the students thinking, oh, I don't want to call the police, or if they were really super drunk, they didn't want to call them either. But here it says about the night of the murders that Dylan Mortensen, right? It says Dylan said, first says Bethany admitted both her and Dylan get scared easy. Bethany even thought maybe one of Ethan's frat brothers could have been playing a joke, which is something we speculated. Maybe they thought, like, what are these noises? And what's this dude in the ski mask doing? And what's going on? Is it the fraternity brothers playing a prank? So the thing is, though, that they had a reputation, Dylan and Bethany, of, like, being scaredy cats, which is why Bethany mentioned that in her speech that her friend read at the sentencing. Everybody thought, man, you guys are so, like, sensitive. You're such scaredy cats. So if they had a reputation of always just being, like, so scared, it could also be another reason that contributed to them not calling the police, because they'd be like, oh no, now we're overreacting again. Let's just wait till the morning, and they were going to call our friends to come over and just have a look, because we are scared. We are scared, right? Okay, and then it also says here, Bethany and Dylan did not call 911 at the time because Bethany thought that Dylan was imagining what she was talking about. She stated that both her and Dylan was both still drunk and they were very groggy. So that's a factor as well. I think that's it for this report. Now we go to report number 114. Okay, so this is about Kaylee's ex. The police were talking to him. His name was also, let's just say JD, okay? He stated that he later looked at his phone and he saw several missed calls from Goncalves and Mogen from the early morning hours of November 13th of 2022. That part we knew. And so he told me that he received multiple calls from Goncalves and Mogen, one of which was FaceTime between 2:40 and 3 o'clock in the morning. He stated that he knew Mogen for some time, but she would not call him for any reason. He also said that Goncalves texted him to tell him that he could come to her house to retrieve his vape pen. So we don't know that yet before either. I'm sure many of us still wonder if they felt a little bit like freaked out, or if they were just calling him for fun, or just say like, come on over, you know what I mean? I don't know, but that was a lot of calls from Kaylee and from Maddie that night between 2:40, or that morning, 2:40 and 3 in the morning, and the murders happened between 4 and 4:25 a.m. So that is still so shocking. JD did add that Goncalves would call him on occasion when she was walking home alone or when she was feeling sketched out. I wonder if they had like any feeling, any sinking feeling that, I don't know, something is just very wrong. Because we know that, you know, Bryan Kohberger was already driving around in early morning hours and around the area. I don't know if they heard anything or saw anything. I don't think it was in those exact times, 2:40 to 3. I think he'd left his apartment after that from what I remember. But still, I wonder if they were feeling in any way sketched out. The ex stated that there were people coming in and out of 1122 King Road frequently, and more people knew the code to their door than they should have. He stated that he was not sure if the residents regularly locked the rear sliding glass door. So unfortunately, that was a very, very vulnerable point in the home, and that's what the killer used to access the home. The ex also told me that he and Goncalves owned a dog, a golden doodle named Murphy, with Goncalves. He also told me that Goncalves was taking the dog out sometime in the past when Goncalves saw a shadowy figure behind the house. He stated nothing else came of the incident. So yeah, she was very worried about that She was telling her ex-boyfriend, she was telling friends, she was like, there's a guy. It's like first thing you hear, there's a shadowy figure. And to other friends, she said, there's a man there. There's a man in the woods. So I don't even know, this could be two different times, right? Between when she's telling JD and when she's telling her friends, those could have been two different times, because one is described as a shadowy figure and the other is described as a man is standing in the woods. It could also be the same time. It could be Bryan Kohberger, plausibly, but it might also, I don't know who that would be, but how creepy, right? Okay, now this is report number 171. This person says, okay, so on March 4th of 2023, Redacted called the MPD tip line and left a voicemail regarding a tip for this case in which she described seeing a man walk by her house at Redacted sometime during August or September of 2022, which is also in the months and weeks leading up to the murders. Sergeant Blaker sent me the tip on March 15th of 2023. I spoke to Redacted via the phone on March 21st of 2023. I did not record our conversation. I asked Redacted to relay to me what her tip was in reference to, and she told me she used to live at Redacted. This home is located approximately 0.13 miles due east of 1122 King Road. She told me that she was home one day in August or September of 2022 when her daughter came running into the house saying there was a man walking through the yard. She stated that she looked out the window and saw a man who looked nervous walking on the south side of her house from east to west. From east to west. So if her house is 0.13 miles east of King Road and this person is walking through their yard and from east to west, well, that's interesting. They told me that she frequently saw people walk by the house, but not in that particular area. She said the man had curly hair with a large nose, and he walked by without saying anything. She stated the encounter became stranger when the same man walked back by the house in the opposite direction, but taking the same route approximately 15 minutes later. She said she stepped outside and yelled to the man that he was on private property. She said the man didn't look at her and simply walked away. Now, she told me, unprompted, that she believed that the male that she saw was Kohberger after she saw a side profile picture of him in the news after his arrest. She stated that she was 92% sure, 92, that's very specific, 92% sure that it was Kohberger. She stated that she did not see the man any other times after the occurrence or in August or September. However, she told me there was another occurrence in June or July of 2022 when a white sedan was parked near her mailbox for over an hour. It should be noted, Redacted is a dead-end road with only residences. She told me the vehicle left after her neighbor walked out to ask the man if he needed help. She could not possibly say what type of vehicle she saw that day. She was not able to provide any further specific detail about the dates. So on March 22nd of 2023, Sergeant Blake and I went to the area where she said she saw the man. This is a well-worn path from Boyd Avenue through to Blake Avenue, which is likely where she saw the man. In addition, I spoke to the neighbor who spoke to the man in the white car, identified only as Redacted at Redacted, who stated that he remembered the encounter but could not add any further information. So mildly interesting there, because even if this was in the daytime, Kohberger would have been to that area multiple times to get to know all the routes around it, you know, how to enter the house, how to exit the house. I mean, he did park behind the house, according to the police reports, parked behind the house, and I mean, wow, he was in and out committing 4 murders in a very short span of time. So he would know the area really well, right? So he could have practiced many different routes to walk and all of that. And the last one for today would be report number 14. And as you can see, we're going to the highlighted parts over here, which says, Redacted told me the following. He woke up a couple of times. So this is actually a person who lives towards, like at the back of the house, up the hill there. So this neighbor woke up a couple of times Saturday night. He looked at the clock, saw it was 4:17 hours. So that's right when the murders had happened. And said after about 5 minutes of waking up, he heard a dog barking outside from the direction of 1122 King Road. He said he was going in and out of sleep, and after an hour, around 5 o'clock in the morning, he still heard the dog barking outside from the direction of 1122 King Road. Now that could be that where Kaylee's room is, maybe Murphy was on the deck that could be what sounds like outside, especially at that time in the morning, because we know that Murphy was found in the house, in Kaylee's room, where she would normally put him. You know, if she wasn't in the room or going out or whatever it was, and she was in the house in Maddie's room, right? But maybe that is the sound that he's hearing, because to be outside, then, okay, the question does come up, okay, then who put Murphy in the house? Or how did he get back in the house? Or was the door just left open there? He was outside this entire time, which is interesting, thinking of the previous creepy coincidences of Murphy running into the woods and then not coming back when called. Now we have to speculate again, if Kohberger had desensitized Murphy, trained him to like, come here, here's a treat, right? And then go, then he would go into the house, commit the murders and leave. If Murphy really was barking outside the house, it's also possible that at some point he returned to the house and went and, you know, was there in Kaylee's room, went to the room that he knows. And they also said that the police didn't find any blood on Murphy, so they don't think that he went into any of the rooms where the murders occurred. Shame. There's another report that said that Murphy was just hiding under Kaylee's desk in that room, in Kaylee's room, when they found him. So he sounded like the dog was very distressed that night as well. Very scared of the police too. Okay, so, but this is interesting that you see, pairing it with everything that now the dog is barking outside. And then it says, Redacted said there's a motion light outside of his window, and he said if it turned on, he would have noticed it. He told me that he has lived in this residence since January and has not heard the dog barking outside before in the middle of the night. So that's mildly interesting, right? Okay, so before we go, let's take one last look at the map. And I just want to show you where the lady said she saw the man walking through her yard, which they said was 0.13 miles due east of the King Road residence. So if we go from here, 0.13 miles, it was in this area. So I don't know. I wonder if, you know, he'd been exploring this wooded area, you know, this tree line. Could be, couldn't be. I'm looking forward to reading your comments and hearing what you think. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. I will keep you posted. There's more to go over, of course. And in the meantime, stay safe.